Out of the 83 fantasy standalones that I read, there are 10 that conquered my heart because they were long. The biggest curse of standalones is that they feel too short. There are not enough pages for us to feel lost in the story. Analyzing the 83 standalones that I read, the average page count was of around 393 pages, and the most frequent page count was of 336 pages. These 10 fantasy standalones, though, will have more than 500 pages. In position number 10, and with 502 pages, which will make the standalone somewhere in between Red Rising and The Blade itself in terms of pages, we have a story that I was looking for because I wanted something funny, something to take me out of Islam, to really escape from reality and have something that wasn't as hard as the situation that I was living at the moment. And although this is technically part of a series, this one can be read just as a standalone. It feels complete, it makes total sense, and I really liked having these different adult characters, almost these archetypes that go on a quest and just they find incredibly hilarious situations, and that is Kings of the Wild. It's in the list of a lot of different people because it is funny, the humor is just so on point. If you like dark humor, extremely easy. It is very plot driven, but at the same time you do have those moments in which you are surprised on how deep some characters are. They go on a mission to save someone and they are old. They are not used to do stuff as they were before. Position number 9, and with 506 pages, we have a story from one of my arch enemies. I first read another story from this author and I despised it. I started liking it, and then at some point I was so confused. I didn't know what I was reading, and eventually once that I ended a book, I was like, oh no, this has sadly been perhaps not my cup of tea, and I just was not able to DNF it. So when I picked this book, which was pitched as the best book if you want vibes, I was like, okay, I'm intrigued, because a standalone plus vibes is not that frequent. You don't have as many pages to really go rich on the world building usually, and I fell in love. It's a book that you will love if you like magic and if you want to believe in magic. I felt so magical, so whimsical, instantly became one of my favorite standalones of all time, and that is Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. It's really character driven. It is fairly slow, but it breaks that fourth wall. It allows you to see magic. It makes you think on magic. Was not able to shake the feeling of things are magical. And although this story has been pitched as this dramatic duel between magicians, it's not really that vibe. These magicians are really on separate spaces, and what you see is their lives intertwined and the day-to-day of this circus. It is wonderful. It's a testament of doing great stuff with 500 pages. What the author creates and what you're able to live, it's outstanding. Position number 8, with 544 pages, we have a story that I was terrified to pick. I knew I was gonna love it, and it is one of my favorite standalones of all time, and I knew that the author was gonna make another 5-star read. However, I was so scared of picking something that actually seemed pretty dense, that contained a lot of footnotes, that goes pretty slow, that it is very character driven, and that is dark academia, which is not usually my favorite setting, but I am really learning that I absolutely love it. However, what I discovered is a story that really takes you from the emotions. It's this slow burn of anger, just turning up and up and up until you're just so not angry, but you have this passion, and that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. This story, it's dark academia at its finest. It is beautifully done. It was so well researched, and you actually kind of feel smart while reading it. There's this magic around words, about languages, and there are so many things that you learn around language in itself in this book because it is explained to you. The footnotes make sense because it enriched the story terribly. It just never felt like something that was added for the sake of feeling smart. And although you will follow these different characters, especially once since he is a child, but you will feel it's your own journey into this Tower of Babel, and the themes that are explored are heavy. Colonialism, sexism, racism, there's a lot, and I loved it. Position number 7, with 565 pages, we have a story that is quite character driven. I wanted a story with a rich world building, with a rich setting that had this great blend with characters, and I wanted something that displayed more character depth rather than an incredible, very action-packed plot, which I was used to read at a time with other more epic, perhaps, stories. And when I reached this story, I felt this calm, but also this coldness, and it was beautiful. You will follow these 4 different perspectives, and it is done in such a masterful way that without the author telling you at the beginning of each chapter which is the perspective that you're reading, you actually know which is the perspective that you read. And that is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. This author really has this ability to craft incredibly different stories. I read from this author Temerary, also The Schoolomancer, and this feels so different. As soon as you open it and start reading, you will feel cold. There's this frozen Russian setting. There's this almost dark tone to it. And although one of these perspectives is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, I just fell in love and was surprised of what I was finding. There's this story of courage of these different women trying to figure out their lives and advancing. And I was really compelled. I know this is a favorite of a lot of people, but also it's not necessarily an easy read. You will need to be kind of aware of what you're reading and which is the point of view that you're following, and fell in love with this dark fairy tale, which is outstanding. Position number 6 with 651 pages, we have my favorite standalone of all time. So most of you will know which one this is. It's a story that shines, in my opinion, because it has the best action scenes. It really rivals Sanderson, and it has elemental magic, which is my favorite soft magic system. I adore how the elements are tackled here, how we see our characters managing ice and wind, and just this story, it's a tragedy, a family drama that will make you feel so much. And when I came to this book, I was aware that for a lot of people was the book that made them cry the most, and I was like, I'm not a crier, this is not going to be for me. It absolutely was. The fact that I picked it for that reason displays that I am a masochist, but I absolutely loved it, and yes, I cried like a baby, which made this book all the better. And that is Sword of Kagan by Emil Wang. This is a booktube darling at this point. This edition is just so wonderful. I cannot just, it's flashy. And although it has a slightly different formula because it starts a little bit slow, then all the action is combined, and by 50% of the book, you're like, what is gonna happen now? It works. This is definitely a book that feels long, that feels fulfilling, that has the ability to craft a world building that is rich with different layers, with characters that are incredibly nuanced and that I will never ever be able to forget. The story follows this family, and especially you will follow this mom and a son, and just I'm still able to remember some scenes, and if I really think about that, like, I can really cry still. So it's a great story. In position number 5 with 638 pages, we have a story that made me fall in love with fantasy. I read these a long time ago, and although I knew I liked fantasy, I wasn't aware that I loved this as much. It's a story that goes slow. It is rather low on magic, but it has these different perspectives that allow you to see widely different things in life, religion, also politics, and also these almost hero kind of character. And although this is not considered the best story from this author, it was the first one that I read, also the first one that was created by him, and it will forever have a space in my heart due to that. And this is Elantris. I remember being younger and loving and cherishing each page. It isn't one of my favorites right now because I read Stormlight, and what can I say, like, that's way better. But this one, it just felt that it was well crafted. It's really able to deliver a very nuanced and complex story that intertwines these different perspectives, and that is able to take a lot of those tropes that we might like in a fantasy story, such as, the chosen one that is not the chosen one, being the strange one but needing to adjust to the court politics. I think it is also a phenomenal story if you're willing to start with fantasy. In position number 4, and with 658 pages, we also have one of my favorite stories of all time. I adore this book because I found it in a moment in which I was really lacking stories that were compelling, that packed a punch to my heart, but at the same time it had a very interesting plot, and it just found me in a moment in which I really was struggling. I was in a reading slump and I was lost. As soon as I started reading this and I started picking this one up via audio, I knew this was going to be my favorite read of the year, one of my favorites of all time. And I quickly changed into physical copy and I was in love. This is a weird blend of having Jane Austen's story with our main character going to war, and it works. And that's Guns of the Dawn. Etienne is more known because of his sci-fi stories, but this one you don't need to miss. It's a story that really, it's a masterpiece in taking tropes, breaking those tropes and creating a story anew. I was absolutely amazed on how genius the author was in order to take our main character, which is privileged, and then change everything for her. Love triangle, change it. And you can keep going and going and going. This is a story that I reread at the beginning of the year and it felt better even. So I really recommend, if you want something that will give you that character-driven side, but also this plot that it feels really intense because you are first pages at the middle of war. Our main character, first pages, lets you know that she has killed someone, and that is intense, and I absolutely loved it. Position number 3, and with 688 pages, we have a story that I read not so long ago, and I was amazed that I did not read this before. It's such a masterpiece of really creating a magic system that it is both beautiful and also breathtaking. It has different perspectives that are really, in one hand, fun, in other, adventurous. It has a little bit of religion, of romance, of politics. It has a sentient sword. And although there's going to be a following book in this story, right now we don't have it, and it's been the case for a lot of time, and I still feel this story can be read as a standalone, and that is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This is story, it takes this fate of these two sisters, that it is twisted, and then their own journey begins, and what we see, it's just the best humor. I didn't think that Sanderson was good at humor, and with this book I proved to be incorrect. I was laughing out loud because one of these points of view that we were going to be following is supposed to be a god. He does not believe he is a god, and he's trying to convince everyone that that's the case. I was cackling out loud. It's a story that really, I really cherish this. The magic system, it is phenomenal. And just the fact of having this sentient sword that just wants to kill, it is both hilarious and really scary. I really recommend, if you want something that feels completely fulfilling, that has just the right amount of pages, that it's able to display this world, that it is big enough. You will see a lot of stuff with characters that are nuanced and just, it definitely packs a punch to your heart. I loved it. Position number 2, with 848 pages, we have a story that is rich in world building and descriptions. Pick this one up because it's considered at the top of the hill in terms of standalone. I was unaware. I had FOMO. I needed to read it. And what I discovered, it's something that really changed, in a way, my life, because I'm terribly bad at imagining stuff. I read and it is really difficult for me to envision what I'm reading. And I found in this book that I was able to actually see it. And so I knew there's going to be a certain writing style that allows me to figure that out. It also made me realize that I had actually that lack, that I am not that good. And with this book, it was really lush. We see this massive land that it's divided, and we follow perspectives in different places of this land. A terrible evil is emerging. There are adult characters, and the story really delivers in letting you know these different perspectives, knowing the characters, and also wanting to see what unfollow and understanding those high stakes. And that is Prairie of the Orange Tree. I know there is a prequel, but still, I feel this book is still a standalone on itself. You can read it, feel fulfilled, and just, move to the next one. It's a story that, in my opinion, if it would have had more pages, I would have been totally okay with it. Pick this one up if you want a story that has a really lush environment with politics, with very different points of view that will get you through very terrible situations. And in position number 1 with 1006 pages, and I'm technically cheating here because I haven't finished with this story, but I started it recently and I fell in love with it and I was not able to stop. And yes, it feels long, but it's this book that screams to be savored, and it is a story about magic, about really savoring what we have, and the power also of magicians in a society that it is long forgotten. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I recently released a video with the top 10 most difficult stories that you will ever read, and this one was considered by a lot of people to be hard because of the prose, because it really has very intricate sentences, and it also has a lot of footnotes, like a lot of footnotes, but I started it and I fell in love and I am not able to stop. I also feel it's going to make a space within my favorite standalones of all time. The author Susanna Clarke also has a wonderful standalone, Piranesi, which is on the shorter side, which is quite hilarious how she was able to do these completely different stories. And if you want to know my complete list of favorite standalones of all time, I will link here the video for you to check this one out. And if you're liking this content so far, consider joining my Patreon. We have a book of the month reading sprints, we have such a cozy community, a Wheel of Time read along, and I would absolutely love it if you can join us.